So right now, the streaming world is in shambles. Countless controversies have changed how people look at streaming and just content creation in general.
That's right there, man. Damn! Oh my god!
But is there a precedent for how the landscape of streaming has developed? Within the world of entertainment, there's always been a fascination in pushing the boundaries of what's on screen. And the veiled subtlety that masks these controversial topics in the mainstream media has fallen apart over time. Crudeness that pushed the envelope and shocked its audience became more frequent in the media we consumed. And while movies and television have always been packed with innuendos, there was a specific cultural shift in the 90s after the introduction of one network in particular. MTV had been going strong for a decade at this point. It started out in the 80s broadcasting 24/7 music and would see widespread success, as exemplified in the I Want My MTV campaign that started in 1982. This series of ads featured artists such as Cyndi Lauper, Hall & Oates, and David Bowie, and the massive success of the channel led to its purchase by Viacom in 1985. This purchase is what began the introduction of the traditional television programming that MTV would be known for in the modern day. The main focus was on young adults, and this was reflected in some of its most popular shows at the time, such as Beavis and Butthead or Daria, and in 1992 a new kind of show hit the entertainment landscape with the introduction of MTV's series, The Real World.
This is the true story. True story.
Of 7 strangers picked to live in a loft
And have their lives taped to find out what happens.
What?
When people stop being polite. Could you get the phone?
And start getting real.
The real world.
Now, very aptly named, the series was a pseudo-documentary styled show about 7 strangers between the ages of 19 and 26, all of whom were from different backgrounds but brought together to live in a New York apartment. Now, this show was absolutely massive. It tripled MTV's ratings and it added to the legitimacy of them as a television programming network and not just 24/7 music. And it was heavily panned at the time. Critics at the time generally hated it and considered it stupid and idiotic. They considered it an insult to the art of television and film production. And here's the thing, as a show it worked. It was something different, something entertaining, and it was relatable. It was reality TV. The Real World is what I would consider the basis of modern reality television. That is, if we ignore Number 28, which was a Dutch show that aired a year prior with the exact same concept. By 1995, The Real World has spun off into its sister show called Road Rules. It was a similar premise, but instead of an apartment in New York, 6 young adults were in an RV traveling to different locations. As we close in on the 2000s, the reality TV format has become increasingly popular and equally competitive. The popularity of voyeurism isn't only exclusive to television either. Jennifer Ringley would go down in history when she became the first person to broadcast her life to the internet in 1996 on her website jennycam.com. Jennifer started out at the age of 19 in her dorm at Dickinson College, where her site would upload a new picture from her webcam every 3 minutes. This inspired a flock of others, such as pop artist Anna Vogue, to start their own site. One of these sites was voyeurdorm.com, an adult site in which users would pay $35 a month to have access to live photos of college-aged women. Now keep in mind at this point MTV had been dominating the reality TV genre, which was solidified after the release of The Challenge, a spin-off of Road Rules that came out in 1998, and other networks were jumping on the opportunity to have their own big reality TV series. In 1999, Voyeur would have talks with Infinity, a subsidiary of CBS, under the guise of launching a radio program, and shared the full inner workings of their operation, which included how to build the house, designing the network of cameras, as well as the revenue and sponsors that the site had acquired. CBS then allegedly went ahead and used this information as justification to then launch their own show, Big Brother, after purchasing the rights from the Dutch production company Endemol Entertainment, which aired the original version of the show earlier that year. Eventually, with the rising popularity of these shows, the original premise as social experiments evolved into being more scripted and having more of a front as a bigger-than-life production. The production teams behind them became more disingenuous with their editing. They manufacture entire events that would never even transpire, and the cast would be orchestrated to produce maximum drama.
It's okay, bud. That's what, dude.
It's like she wasn't willing to compromise, you know? I'm sure there was things wrong with her that I would have compromised for. I don't understand that. I don't understand that.
It wasn't meant to be, man.
It takes a big man to cry like that. You know, it shows you have a big heart, very sensitive towards things like that.
Don't worry, man. I cried over girls several times. Don't worry.
Men cry.
And at this point, the cast was very much knowledgeable of what they had to gain from their appearances on the show, and you would start to see those who aspired against the entertainment industry start infiltrating what was once the ranks of ordinary people. It transitioned from televised social experiments to its own bubble of Hollywood. Now, as exhaustive of an introduction as that was, this is really the basis of the comparison that I want to make in this video. In 2024, we're seeing a return to form in the entertainment we consume, and if you put yourself through the pain of watching a Jack Doherty stream or similar streamers to him, you'll notice the uncanny familiarity to the 2000s era of celebutantes, such as Paris Hilton and the Kardashians, all people who embody the idea of famous for being famous. Now back to our timeline. In 2005 and 2007, we saw the rise of platforms such as YouTube and Justin.tv, the latter of which would come to be known as Twitch.tv. In the early days of these platforms, creators were for the most part young people who uploaded videos of themselves as a creative outlet, the exact same type of audience that OG MTV would cater to. And at this point, the distinction between early internet creators and the traditional celebrity is more than clear. While celebrities are very much a representation of our culture and serve as role models for many, the majority of people would never see themselves in that position. They aren't in a position for you to obtain, so you emulate them. Now through the internet, you could see someone with similar hobbies and interests be successful. You could reach out to these people, become their friends, be an active part of their community. You could be in their position. The earliest creators would gain a platform due to their own creativity, relatability, or their ability to cater to a specific audience's niche. In recent years, there's been a massive shift in which the expectation of streamers is that of success-driven personas that are oriented around maximum entertainment value. The industry received a boost from the 2020 pandemic, and since then, streaming has been elevated to a new level. This is the first generation in which you have streamers being viewed in the same light as Hollywood actors. Take your Aiden Rosses, Kai Cenats, or XQCs as an example. Viewers who once came to watch people play games or partake in a particular activity have transformed into die-hard fans of their creators. They look to them for advice on topics ranging from everyday life to even politics. The recent trend of streaming has been a mixed bag of drama, celebrity collaborations, and IRL streams. And this is where the dichotomy of reality television and streaming comes into play. The things we see them do aren't all that unique or new as far as the entertainment industry goes. Even the way it's expanding as an entertainment medium is similar to what we saw happen in the 90s with reality television. The taboos being broken, the shock humor, the interpersonal drama, these are things we can all pick up as very clear staples of reality TV. And to borrow a term from my friend, it's all fast food entertainment. It's not time consuming or high quality, but it's hard for your audience to look away from. And just like how aspiring actors would infiltrate the ranks of what you would assume are normal people in reality TV shows, you now have a wave of complete delinquents drowning streaming platforms. And you can see this in the way that YouTube pranksters are transitioning into becoming streamers to monetize their degenerate behavior. Unfortunately, this seems to be the new norm for streaming. Unless they get arrested, there are very few repercussions, and this isn't meant to take some place of moral high ground. I believe that everything has its own nuance, and I think portraying people as pure evil caricatures of whatever bad thing they did is something that you will only see done by people who either have something to gain by characterizing them as such, or something to hide. My issue is that you can still ask for someone to be held accountable for their actions without it amounting to a slander campaign or virtue signaling. And this is what I find so interesting. There is a massive problem with accountability in the current landscape of entertainment. People will argue that since these same things are portrayed in television, that content creators should just be held to the same standard. You have people using the likes of comedic geniuses such as Dave Chappelle or Bill Burr, or even shows like Jackass and South Park, all of which are examples of controversy in popular media, as scapegoats for why it's okay for others to do the same on the internet. Are streamers not just the new wave of comedians and entertainers? Absolutely not, and it's important to make this distinction. Many of these examples are representations of professionals who are either skillful and intentional with their satirical portrayal of the real world, or purely stage events that take place within the scope of the show. Of course, a show like Jackass is by no means a show layered with highbrow humor, but that doesn't make it any less intentional. These are actors who are inflicting harm exclusively upon themselves, and what you are witnessing is entirely premeditated. Everything is completely planned out beforehand, with million-dollar sets, stunt crews, and emergency personnel on hand. Over the course of all the Jackass stunts, it's estimated they spent at least $24 million in medical bills. But today we aren't talking about billion-dollar production companies with some form of liability. We're talking about influencers.
You love everybody? No. Okay,
There's a major disconnect in modern celebrity culture. As people, we enjoy those who we relate with. Content creators, specifically streamers, are capable of fulfilling this function. As consumers, we are able to project our personal views and identity on another person, and whether that manifests by living vicariously through a streamer or through a parasocial relationship, we as humans receive validation through these interactions. Our individuality is being boiled down to tribalism on every level. As people, we've been commoditized even down to our opinion. Content creators are getting wealthy through putting out societal brain rot, and the victims are the ones who have been conditioned to defend it. The reason streamers shouldn't just get a pass for being scumbags because it's entertainment is because they can't be held to the same legal responsibility as a television network for putting out something that's harmful to society. To say you can't control what your audience does is a lazy and naive way to get out of responsibility. You obviously can't personally monitor them on a daily basis, but everything you say and put out as a creator has some effect on the people who look up to you. The issue is that creators know they have this level of influence over their fan bases, and it's what makes them the most money. And there's something else I think that's important to address. This type of content has found somewhat of a home on the streaming platform Kick.com, and although it's easy to just label the platform itself as irresponsible, you have to remember that the majority of these streamers are imports from other sites. Kick is much newer to the streaming world, with their intentions being focused on building a platform that prioritizes its creators. Mix this with some of the most opportunistic lowlifes on the internet, and you have a recipe for disaster. This isn't to say that we should just give platforms a pass to let anything happen on their sites, but it's very easy to compartmentalize issues and say one individual platform is the problem. It's very negligent to pretend like these things didn't happen before Kick existed and aren't prevailing issues across the internet. It's crucial to hold both creators and platforms accountable for the content that is produced. We need to remember that someone having a camera and a mic doesn't give them some untouchable status. Think back to reality TV. No matter how crazy things got, there was still a level of separation with the audience. The worst that would happen is that something would go bad on a show in a controlled environment. With the internet, there is no show. It's just people with a broccoli cut harassing people in a mall. We don't need to defend this behavior or these people, regardless of how much we enjoy watching it. I fully acknowledge that it's sometimes hard to separate yourself or your opinions from a person who you find entertaining or agree with online. But it's time to start striving to do better as an individual and living your own life instead of dedicating it to making someone else more successful and rich.